Maintaining strength and mobility are some of the biggest concerns that I hear about from seniors. When you dig a little deeper, what it really boils down to is maintaining function and quality of life. For some people, that may mean being able to play golf or pickleball. For other people, it's spending time with their grandchildren. And yet for other people, it's just being able to stay independent in their own home so that they don't have to go to a nursing home. Whatever quality of life looks like for you, chances are that if you want to maintain your strength and mobility, that you're probably going to have to do some exercises. But as a physical therapist, I know that most patients don't do their exercises, and largely it's not their fault. Most physical therapy exercises don't directly benefit you in your everyday life. And so in this video, I'm going to show you 7 essential exercises that directly translate into functional benefits in your everyday life. Now, I'll go through each of the exercises step by step and give you some specific technique pointers that you can use to make sure that you're doing them in the safest, most effective way possible. But then at the end, I'm going to run through all of the exercises in real time so that you can see just how manageable it is to fit these exercises into your everyday life. So the 7 exercises that I'm going to describe in this video are what are referred to as primal movements. And primal movements are functional movement patterns that humans have been doing in their everyday lives for thousands of years and that we continue to do today. And largely, primal movements can be broken down into 7 categories: the bend, the squat, the lunge, the push, the pull, the twist, and gait or walking. And so I'll start out and go through each of these step by step and give you one example exercise that resembles each one of these functional movements that you probably are already doing in your everyday life. So the first one is the bend. And bending is helpful to be able to pick things up off the floor. It may be cleaning up around the house, it may be picking up your grandchildren, it may be getting pots out from underneath the stove, but everyone has to be able to bend. Now, some people who have back problems have been told that they should never bend, but bending is absolutely good and healthy for your spine if you do it correctly. Now, how you don't want to bend is to lean forward from the waist like this, where your center of gravity goes out in front of your hips. Because the further forward you lean, 1, you get off balance, so you could potentially fall, and 2, your back muscles have to work much, much harder to keep you from falling forwards. So the way that you should bend is by pushing your hips backwards as your head goes forward. And that keeps your center of gravity balanced over top of your feet. Now, if you watch what my feet are doing here, if you watch my toes, as I push my hips back, my weight goes more onto my heels and my toes are actually up off the floor. Now, to give you a little bit more balance and stability here, what you can actually do is sort of roll to the outer side of your feet and scrunch your toes a little bit to grip the ground with your feet. And that gives you a little more stability while your weight and pressure is still mostly going through your heels. And so to do the bend, you'll hip hinge backwards. It's okay if your knees bend. They don't need to stay completely straight, but you shouldn't be doing a squat either, because that's the next functional exercise that we'll get to. So you want to push your hips back, hip hinge, go down like that, grip the ground with your toes while the weight's on your heels. Now your prime movers for coming back up are going to be your butt muscles, your glutes, as well as your hamstrings. This is not a back extension exercise. Your abdominals and lower back muscles are co-contracting together to stabilize your spine, but largely your spine should be staying in a pretty neutral position, and you're just pushing your hips and pelvis backwards and forwards. Now, the deadlift is a perfect example of the bend that you can do as a strengthening exercise. But if you're just having trouble with bending in your everyday life, I would suggest starting with just doing a body weight bend or hip hinge like this, And then if you want to add some weight, you can grab a pair of dumbbells, keep them close to your body. The closer to your center of gravity you keep the weight, the easier it is. The further away it gets, the more stress it puts on your back muscles. So you don't want to do a deadlift out here. You want to keep the weight close to your body. Push your hips back, hips forward. Hips back, hips forward. Hips back, hips forward. So that's the first exercise, the bend. Now, the second exercise is the squat. Now, if I had to pick just one exercise, I'd say the squat is the best overall exercise because it's such a functional movement pattern that we use every day and it incorporates so many different muscle groups. But to do the squat, you want to first get your feet set in the right position. So make sure that you just use a natural stance. You don't want to force your toes straight ahead. So just find what feels normal to you. Then wherever your feet point, you want to turn your knees out so that your knees are over your toes. If your toes point straight ahead, your knees should point straight ahead. If your feet point out a little bit, your knees should also point out a little bit. Then you're going to start out your squat by doing a little bit of a hip hinge. So it's a little bit of what you just did as your bottom goes backwards. But you're going to allow your knees to bend more in this than in the hip hinge. So it's not a bend straight like that. You're going to push your hips back while bringing your trunk forward slightly. So you shouldn't squat with your back perfectly vertical like that. That puts a lot more pressure on your knees if you try to keep your back upright. Furthermore, it's likely that you're going to arch your back too much. And if you have degenerative disc disease or spinal stenosis, that back arch position is not a comfortable place to be. So you want to, again, get your spine in a neutral position, push the hips back just a little bit, and then drop down with your hips going backwards and your trunk going forwards like that. Now, for many seniors, you're not going to squat that deep. And so a good senior version of that is just doing a chair stand. So you're going to get your feet set, turn your knees out, push the hips back, and just squat down to a chair or to a bench like that. To see it from a front alignment, remember you want to keep feet, knees, and hips all in a good alignment. Hips back, hips forward. If you are able to get deeper than that, certainly go ahead and do that. But just doing a little chair stand is a good, accessible way for most seniors to start. And if you do get to where you need to add a little bit of extra weight, then you can add dumbbells and just add weight like that. So that's the squat. Now the next exercise is the lunge. And the lunge is really important for being able to get up off the floor if you're on the floor playing with grandchildren, or if God forbid you happen to fall, you want to be able to get back up. Going up and down stairs is also a modified version of a lunge, where you're putting one foot up, then the other foot up, then the other foot up. And so doing a lunge is a great way to help increase your glute strength and your quad strength, as well as it gives you some side-to-side balance as well. A squat is a pretty symmetrical exercise where you're balanced side to side. With a lunge, you have to get a little bit more side-to-side stability. So to do a lunge, you're going to start with your feet staggered, and most of your weight should be through your front foot here. So you want to have your back foot on the ground for balance, but this is the leg that's going to be doing most of the work. Now you don't want to bring your knee forwards like this as you're lunging. You actually want to drop your weight down on this heel. So think about sitting your bottom back on this heel, kind of sitting down like that. Now again, if you're just starting out with this, you may not go all the way down to the ground. Just pick something that feels easy for you and start out there. If you need to hold on to something for balance, you can see I got a little tippy a few times. Just start out doing a partial lunge. And then as you get stronger over time, you can make this exercise harder by going all the way down to the ground or closer to the ground. And then if you get better at that, obviously you can still add weight and do it that way. I'll switch legs just so you can see what it looks like from the opposite view. And then to show it from the front, again, just like the squat, you want to keep your knee over toe. So this is a common problem that people make with lunges, or a common mistake. They let their knee come in that way. You want to keep toes, knee, and hip all in alignment. And then going down like that. So that's the lunge. Next is the push. And pushing can come in two forms. It can come in the form of a horizontal push. It can also come in the form of a vertical push. A horizontal push is pushing a grocery cart or pushing a lawnmower, for example. But in most everyday situations, we don't do this type of bench pressing or push-up movement a whole lot. What we do more commonly, and what many seniors have trouble with, is lifting things up over their head like that, more of a vertical push. And so the exercise I'm going to choose for this workout is more of a shoulder press type movement. Now, you will probably want to use some weights for this, but if you have some shoulder pain or you have trouble just reaching up overhead, then I'd suggest you just start with the weight of your arms and then add some light dumbbells as you're able. But I'll show it with weights just so you get an idea. Now, the first thing here you want to make sure you do is keep a good spinal alignment. So you don't want to arch your back as you're doing a shoulder press. It does help to stagger your feet in a little bit of a lunge. So you want to have your feet forwards and backwards like this. This gives you front to back stability. You also want to have them a little bit wider. This gives you side to side stability. And that way you won't tip over as you're doing a shoulder press. Because the higher you move the weight, your center of gravity moves upwards, which makes you a little bit more tippy. And so get a good base of support in sort of a stagger stance position. Roll your pelvis underneath of you so you get your spine in a neutral stack position. Then you bring the weights up. Now you'll notice my elbows are in front of my hands here. You don't want to try and push up like this, where your elbows are behind you or behind your hands. This is a common mistake that I see a lot of people, not just seniors, make, is that they try to press up like this. And you have no power this way. If you look at an Olympic weightlifter where they do the clean and jerk, you'll notice they kind of get into a catch position like that, where the elbows are in front, and then drive up that way. So when you're doing this, this also helps you keep your shoulders externally rotated, which means you're not going to pinch your rotator cuff muscles and cause damage there. So you have the elbows in front, hands backwards. Then think about driving your elbows up towards the ceiling. It's not so much about thinking about pushing the weights. Think about pushing up with your elbows towards the ceiling and going up like that. And again, that helps you put things away on high shelves or in high cabinets. You may want to start with a very light weight on this and then progress up as you feel comfortable. So that's the push. The next exercise is the pull. And again, just like the push, there are horizontal pulls, like a row, for example, starting a lawnmower or pulling a box off of a shelf. There's also a vertical pull, like a pull-up or a pull-down machine at the gym. But unless you're climbing trees or pulling yourself up on ladders, most people don't have to do a vertical pull in their everyday life, because as we pull things down, gravity is helping us. So there's not a lot of resistance that needs to be had in a vertical pull. Horizontal pulls, however, we do a little bit more often, either pulling things towards us or picking things up in a bent over row type fashion. And so that's the exercise that I'm going to choose for this. Now, jumping the gun on this also has a little bit of a rotational aspect. Rotational or twisting movements can come in the form of twisting movements, where you're twisting, or anti-rotation movements, where you're preventing twisting. So you're stabilizing your spine and preventing your spine from twisting when it might otherwise twist. And so this exercise, the one arm bent over row, gives you both the pulling aspect as well as an anti-rotation exercise where your spine's going to want to twist and you're going to have to stabilize against it. So we're going to use just one dumbbell for this. So we'll take the one dumbbell, put your knee on something. This is good to help you stabilize, and your other foot on the floor. Then you're going to want to put the weight downwards and let it hang down, kind of let your shoulder blade sag forwards. Now what you don't want to do is pull up like this. This causes a lot of spinal rotation. It also extends your shoulder probably more than you really want to be doing. So think about squeezing your lat muscle here. This is what's going to help you initiate the movements, your lats and your rhomboids and your traps. So just think about bringing the shoulder blade down and up, down and up, and then pull your elbow in towards your waist. But again, initiate it by thinking about moving the elbow, not about moving the weight. So elbow towards waist, like that, kind of like starting a lawnmower a little bit. And you should feel this in your lat muscles and the muscles between your shoulder blades. So you take the weight, pull towards your waist like this. And again, elbows shouldn't come way back behind your trunk. And you're also sort of stabilizing your spine against not doing that, the anti-rotation aspect of it. So that's the pull. Now next is the twist. We just did an anti-rotation exercise. So for the twist, we're going to incorporate a rotation exercise. Now a lot of people think about twisting crunches or bicycles for these type of exercises, but it's not that common that you lay on your back and do twisting abdominal type of movements in everyday life. One thing you do a lot though is pivot. Whether you're playing golf or pickleball or taking laundry from the washer to the dryer, or whether you're taking dishes from the sink to the dishwasher, we do a lot of this pivoting movement, and most gym exercises are more in this front to back plane. They don't address that pivot rotation plane very much. And so the exercise that I'm going to show for this isn't so much of a strengthening exercise as much as a mobility exercise. And it's just being able to hip hinge. Think about a downhill skier where they kind of shift one way to the other, shifting weight inside to outside. Your weight on your feet should be kind of coming like this, where you're going to the big toe side of one foot, little toe side of the other, and just kind of move back and forth. If you do have some knee arthritis, start with just really little swivels where your knees are kind of coming this way. Again, think downhill skier as you're doing this. And then you can progress into bigger ranges. Golfer, like that. Same type of movement pattern where you're leading with your hips. You're not hitting the ball with your arms. Pivoting your pelvis like that. Hip swivel. Pickleball or tennis. Hip swivel. Boxing. Hip swivel. Throwing a ball with your grandchildren. Pivoting, hip swivel. It's all the same movement pattern. So just focusing on shifting back and forth, weight to one side of the foot, then the other side like that. So those are the exercises. Now I'm going to run through 10 repetitions of each of them in a workout. And I should address repetitions and sets because that's a question that I always get. And largely, as long as you're challenging yourself and progressing over time, the actual number of sets and reps don't matter. Start with something that's challenging for you and then progress over time. If you are following more strict strength training rules, if you're trying to build strength, then you want to shoot for 8 to 10 reps. And what I mean by strength is, gosh, I can only lift 5 pounds from the ground and I need to be able to lift 20 to be able to lift a bag of cat food. Then in that case, you might be shooting for that 8 to 10 range. If you can, say, lift your 25-pound grandchild, but if you do it more than a few times a day, your back's going to pay for it. In that case, you may be training more for endurance. And in that case, you're going to look more in the 15 to 20 repetition range. And so I'm just going to shoot for 10 in this video, just to kind of keep it condensed time-wise, but you can take note of this and use a rep range that works best for you. And again, it's more about progression over time, getting better than you were last week or last month. So let's get started. We'll start out with the bend or the deadlift. So I'll run a timer. I'm not going to go through techniques here. If you just jumped to this part of the video, I'd suggest you go watch the specific techniques earlier, but here we go. So 10 deadlifts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 lunges. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. 10 shoulder presses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 rows with each arm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And again, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 10 hip swivels. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. And so you can see that really only takes minutes a day once you get the routine down. It's very accessible for most people. And again, just use a weight and rep range that works for you and then progress over time. Now you may notice that there was one functional movement that I left out of this video, and that's walking. And the reason for that is that the best exercise to help your walking is actually just walking. But if you're going to walk, you may as well do it right. And to learn how to do that, I'd suggest you check out this video over here. But before you go, if you found this helpful, give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel so you can get notified of our future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.